Okay, if you ever have the chance to do an oral history project, jump at it. If you go out and ask people questions and let them talk into your microphone, or you're writing it down and you transcribe, you will learn tons about natural speech. I recently got back into doing some reporting for our local daily paper, the Sarasota Herald Tribune here. I haven't for a few weeks, but doing interviews and writing down the exact things people say, that's really refreshing to my dialogue motor inside. You do this, you sort through the gravel, and you will immediately pick out the gold, and you're going to use it. Now, when I say use it, I don't necessarily mean insert some of these verbatim things that you hear into your fiction, word for word, though you could, depending on your needs. I mean use it to inform yourself as to how people talk. I recommend that you read oral histories when you can. I recommend Studs Terkel's Working, which I don't know if it's still in print, but that one's really good for developing your ear. There's another one I have on my shelf called The Life Stories of Undistinguished Americans. Sorry, I didn't mean to go past that slide so fast. The Life Stories of Undistinguished Americans, edited by Hamilton Holt, is filled with compelling examples. I would also, this is another one that I think is kind of interesting. I would also recommend reading 911 transcripts if you can handle it emotionally. You will find these online. Just Google 911 transcripts or Google some famous murder case that had a 911 call, and you'll see how people talk under life and death stress. In some of it, the emotion comes through, and some of it doesn't. It's really kind of, it's interesting. The best way, yeah, here it is. I just took a slug of coffee here. The best way to tune into the speech around you is simply to listen. Really listen. There's my coffee. I highly recommend Eavesdropping. What's the coffee cup? Well, coffee shops are the cliche place to eavesdrop, but there's good reason for it. Often, two people who haven't seen each other in a while, they meet at a coffee shop and they talk their heads off. Or two people with something very important to discuss will go to a coffee shop. For about a year, I did a lot of writing at a particular Starbucks in my town. Once in a while, I would see a certain type of couple. I realize this is the second time I've said Starbucks in this presentation. I am not a paid employee of Starbucks. Actually, I'm a non-human android put on Earth by Starbucks to promote brand recognition. Okay, once in a while at this Starbucks, I would see a certain type of couple. Okay, this is a young man sitting, drinking coffee with a much older woman. Their conversations were quiet and very intense. And I saw this over and over with a different young guy and a different older woman every time. And I started to wonder about it. And I started to eavesdrop. I started to look at the bigger picture. And I realized that the coffee shop happened to be a few doors down from an armed forces recruitment center. And I realized that these young men and their mothers had just been to the recruitment center. And they came out and saw the Starbucks and decided to come over here and talk it over. And the faces I saw and the conversations I overheard there were too intimate to recount here, but they informed me as a writer. I haven't yet used a conversation like one of those in one of my books, but all of it is inside me somewhere. It adds to my experience as a person and as a writer. Practicing being sensitive to the human interactions around you is what I'm trying to get across. This is what if you take nothing else from this webinar, and I bet it won't be the only thing, but if it is, it's worth its weight. To think about, to send your emotional tentacles out there into the world, and your auditory tentacles out there into the world, and gather and just be receptive to what you're hearing, to the speech that's around you. How do you develop sensitivity to ambient speech? We'll just kind of say a few exact things to do, and it's simple, and I've been talking about it. Watch for opportunities, pay attention, tune in, be very aware of your environment, not merely as it relates to you. Be a good witness. Of course, listen. Being a good listener, being a sponge, will help you tremendously as a writer. Third, make notes. This one is huge. How many times have you heard something worth repeating, but then you couldn't really remember it right? I keep a little pen in my pocket at all times, plus something to write on, like an index card or a piece of cut-up file folder. It is tremendously helpful to write down bits of dialogue that you hear. Fourth, look at the bigger picture. You want to gain context. Let yourself draw common sense inferences. Yes, that young man looks like he's trying very hard to be confident. The mother, look at her. She's scared, but she knows the Army might just be the best place for this kid. Why? Maybe because he's got lousy posture and a pot belly, and this town has a 25% unemployment rate. Might be the best thing. As you listen to people's conversation, you'll realize that dialogue consists of two things. Content. That is the words they're using, and how they say what they're saying, their delivery. This is a key point for authors. One is as important as the other. As you listen, focus on how they're saying it. Now, right there, as you listen, focus on how they're saying it, right there we go from the realm of student to the territory of artist. Right now we're going to say this. Developing your ear for actual speech will let you use the vernacular for your own purposes. What does vernacular mean? Simply the everyday speech of a region or group. The vernacular is usually idiomatic. I'll talk more about idioms soon. Your goal as a writer is to absorb the way they talk, but as you use the way they talk, you're going to insert your own content. We'll keep going here about that. So how do we do this? Now is the time to get into techniques for writing dialogue.